Trauma and PTSD is two traits I definitely went through time after the cartoon controversy, and I want to talk about how I dealt with it. And I can immediately relay and say that I didn't go to any therapists and I didn't use money on that, and I didn't believe in these quacksalvers. I believe they are just, most of them, just kind of getting money from people. So, and that's maybe part of the trauma and PTSD as well, that you interpret life like this. But I dwelled on documentaries and psychological books telling about the trauma and how it happens, and the PTSD, what symptoms you can get. And I listened especially to Gabor Mate, the Hungarian Jewish psychiatrist, who has very good and profound ways of speaking on these issues that really really spoke to my inner safety and understanding. And well, from there I went on, like, looking into this, and I had friends who also told me you should check yourself for PTSD, and you should know that the traumatic experience you've been through in life hasn't been easy. So trauma happens to anyone who goes through very hard and tough periods of life, and that's what happened to me. When you go through harsh periods of isolation, persecution, feeling of deep insecurity, it can happen on many layers and in different ways. Anyone has maybe experienced trauma in life by in a relationship, or childhood memories from school, or maybe being on a trip and getting one's purse snatched from one's hand in the street. And in that experience, it's something traumatic happens. Trauma means you get out of your um, um, this is a layman's explanation, and not a professional explanation, but it holds that the trauma is getting out of your safety zone and feeling exposed to dangers and to things that can happen to you. It leaves scars on you, and in that sense, life as a whole can be a traumatic experience, because it has all these ingredients. You go through life and you get actually traumatized one way or another, and the more you live, the bigger the trauma. But at the same time, I read and understood from psychology and the science behind it, that the body and mind has the ability, our psyche has the ability to heal itself, and that's why many of us can get on, and that's how people in the past went on. They fought many wars, and they were also much exposed, and they lost all the time. Lost their kids, their husbands, their families, sometimes raids, their houses burned, and nature took over, and a lot of stuff happened. And that's what made people also being traumatized in the past, and had also, perhaps that was the reason for a short lifespan or reactions in their community. Because when you get traumatized, something happens inside you, and you can develop what's called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, so you can get out of order. Usually when I sit here, I'm trusting the safety of my environment, and that I have heat or cooling abilities, and I can reach for water and food, and nobody is lurking out there to attack me, neither an animal or a person. And that's what gives me a sense of safety and a sense of relaxation. But when you feel you have been attacked and you cannot fight back, or you are hit in a way that's very deep, profoundly changing your measures of security and relaxation abilities, that's when this disorder hits you, and it can make you distrust people very deeply, and it can make you look over your shoulder, and some people can develop paranoia, and I've been in all this. And as I said, I didn't go to these therapists, even though I tried gaining some information from one or two of them by having a free talk, because I couldn't afford it for once, and the second, I didn't believe in it and in their ways of healing. And I knew I had the inner ability to get through it. I needed some friends to help, and I needed books and reading, and I knew I could develop a sense of like healing process, because I'm a spiritual person who believes in the spirit's um, ability to heal the psyche, and the psyche's ability to heal the mind, and the mind's ability to interact with the psyche and give it the dose of healing. But there is one touch that's very much needed, and that's the friendship and the love of somebody caring for you. If you don't get that, you are in big trouble, and that's why people seek psychiatrists and psychologists, because they need that human touch, the look, the touch on the shoulder, someone to reaffirm their beliefs and views, and maybe understand their suffering. So I can immediately say it's also about, I found a way of storytelling, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm not posting these videos so I can get followers and all that. I don't care a bit about that. And maybe my videos will stay out there just for 5-10 years, only gaining the attention of 1 or 2 or 10 people. I don't even care. What I care about is that I'm expressing myself, and I'm expressing it as wide as I can, and I feel ready to do that. And that's also like gaining ground again, gaining the measure of security. I have been, for maybe since the Khartoum crisis, been in a traumatic state, and then developed this PTSD, and that also affected my family. I have been aggressive sometimes in the house, not against them directly. Later it was some kind of quarrels, and I told that in my book very honestly and openly, and I feel so guilty towards my ex-wife and how the situation were. But it was mostly like I want to drum something against the walls, and I could get so angry and curse the world and shout on things and people. Once I did it in the street with one of these religious scholars who were respected in society. Just there, he was stood there talking, and I really showered him with a lot of criticism to him and the society, and how things work and function and not function and all that. And that's all a kind of reflection of that trauma. So it's when you get insecure and you feel you're losing control and you cannot do anything about it, that something in your psyche lashes out, because we all want that power of God. That's why people believe in God. I believe in God because God, in my opinion, exists, and in my feeling and in my heart and mind, everything points to the existence of one true God. And he keeps repeating, telling us that in different ways, and books and meditation and cultures. But many people just believe in God because they think they want to be a God, and that makes the picture of God something very, very agreeable and very good to deal with. And I understand that perspective, but that doesn't hold, and it surely doesn't help people get the healing they need. And that's the idea behind existential psychology that I'm gonna maybe talk a bit about later. So how could I get through this trauma, and how could I make the healing possible? I'm not sure. As I'm speaking now, I have not prepared. I actually never prepare for these talks. I just sit and see what my mind takes me through. And one big thing I found is the friendship. It was very important for me that there was somebody caring for me who had a deep calmness and understanding of me. And maybe in the beginning it wasn't a deep understanding of me, but a deep understanding for a traumatic person, a person who has been something very hard and very difficult, and has been hit and been isolated and been persecuted and been psychologically exposed to a very grim picture. You know, at those times, if people would hit my name on Google, they will see the most ugly side of me, as if it was truly close to a demon or a devil walking on earth. And that's how the media can manipulate you. And I remember a scholar from Holland, Netherlands. He had contacted me at that time. He said, "You are one of the first generations um, that's getting like under this kind of huge media attention and being distorted, and that's very exciting." He said in his own way, like he said it passionately, but I understood it was for him as a scholar exciting, that something to dig into. How does that affect, and how does that happen? That a person can get his picture so distorted that people can have all these thoughts about him. So it's like being the beast walking around in my short-legged body and mind, looking at people, looking back at you, seeing that you are that monster they think in their head you are, and not wanting to have anything to do with you. Despite that, some people could see through these darknesses and these manipulative tools, and actually established relations with me. And I had some good friends. If I didn't have them, I'm not sure I would have gotten over the trauma. The second issue is time. You need to give yourself time. And that in that sense, Greenland was a good place to be. It was a good isolationist place for me that really helped me through. So the time in Greenland was very good for my trauma and my PTSD healing, because I had to deal minimum with people. If I could have gotten a pension at that time, I would have taken it gladly. But of course, the same state that thinks that you are the evil part who did wrong are not gonna willingly and helpfully give you the pension. They're gonna make it as hard on you as possible. So I knew I had to go through, and I still have to go through these things. Um, uh, of finding work wherever it is to get my income and to support my family, and somehow, you can call it miraculously, it opened up in that isolated place. And maybe that was also good for my trauma, because I had the time to look into it and heal it. And you have to understand, you're not always aware of your PTSD. It's like somebody else will one time or another be brave enough to tell you, listen, you are showing strange signs, you are reacting in ways that makes you psychological unstable. And I had some of my family, especially my ex-wife, wanting to deliver this message to me. At the same time, I went on, and of course, you live in denial. That's a part of it. That you, as a person with PTSD, you look at people as if they wanna like pull you down, or just not really doing helpful issues, and you can see them in the eye of like criticism, or maybe as an enemy. It's many studies about soldiers now that I remember who have been at war. They take this at home with them, so any noise in the supermarket or anyone shouting on the street makes them alert in a way that's not necessarily, like more than needed. And there are stories about soldiers who were sleeping at night, who can wake up and reacts violently, or gets ready to war, or barricade the doors, or sweaty and shouting and all that. I didn't get these type of things, but my mind could sometimes just awake and be too alert to people and what they want. And so the basic trust is broken when you have been traumatized. It's like the girl who unfortunately and sadly tragically have been violated in her youth, snapped on the street, or in some home or place, manipulated to things she wasn't ready for or wanted. And then that happens for guys as well. And being violated in that way physically is a trauma that's very deep, and has the ability to distort and destroy that life. And it has also the ability to make PTSD much worse, much hard to deal with. And so you see these kind of kids, and when they grow up, and these girls, they do not trust easily because they know they have been violated in their trust in their youth. And so how do you recover from that? That's what I wanted to find out. And after now maybe 20 years, I've maybe the ability to reflect on what I have been through, and that's what I'm trying to talk about. I'm not sure I'm saying what I need to say. And so when you look at this Batman figure there in front of you, it was on purpose. I put it there today because I was saving it for my talks on the hero, the Batman. But what attracted me, I loved Batman since I was a kid. I never knew why, but now I know. He's the traumatized kid, and he's the one who evolved into that very harsh and hard shallow of fighting, always fighting, and being very much aware and conscious of his shadows and the opposites, and why he has to keep going. But he's also the picture of any one of us who can't get over the loss and has to deal with it by acting. He's acting out. He's the crime fighter. So you can like go and fight, as they say, or you can flight. You can run away and hide, and that's the opposite figure of the Batman. And it's also in his character as well, because he's hiding his true face and identity at the same time. That's why he's so amazing. This heroic figure, and so special among so many others. He's so human, and at the same time really, really close to some psychologically disturbed what can you say, lines. And that's why I love his character, because he's the kid inside of and behind all this, and what he did that I couldn't do was to make himself scary for his enemies. God, how I wished I could do that, both to those Danish people who persecuted me and from the beginning were not fair to me, and to those later Islamic people who just want to lash out because you're not part of their ideology and thought anymore, and want to persecute you, and if they could catch you do something bad to you, what's that? And I wish really that these jokers and penguins and all kind of monsters, in my opinion, could get the treatment of facing the fear and facing the evil they are carrying with them without knowing. And so I couldn't find a way of becoming what my enemy fears, and I couldn't get hold of any power that helped me raise above being attacked and being touched. And so I stayed very fragile. Even in my time in isolation in Greenland, it wasn't easy. And anyone with a critical talk or like manipulative way could maybe push me out, or could do me harm in my work and life. So you see, the trauma is there, and maybe you can feel it while I'm speaking now. And so I believe it will stay with you, but you can deal with it so it doesn't overtake you, and so you can have a life that functions almost okay. You have from time to time to listen to yourself when you are tired and what can you say? When you are tired and you can feel the reaction signals are coming up, then you have to isolate yourself, or otherwise you will be a harm to your friends and kids. And I have been close to do that, because sometimes if my kids wanted to criticize me, something in me started reacting, and I had to keep it under control and say, hey, they just making it for fun, or that's just their opinion. And I learned that with time, that I didn't have to act, or I didn't have to go into a fight with anyone. I did it with my friends during these 20 years. They could sometimes feel my deep distrust for some of the things they said or they meant, and they could feel that sometimes I thought they were also agents of sent by someone in this society to get to me, or maybe they were just um, uh, they're just not fond of who I was and thought me as an evil person. And so now the first thing you will think is paranoia. And yes and no, because I've always said to people who talk to me about paranoia that paranoia is when you don't have any reason to fear or distrust and you do it. Like if I'm totally safe right now and I start like looking around as if there are enemies out there wanting me, or looking around for something that maybe could touch me, and I have no reason for it because I'm not persecuted, I'm not in a political active place, and there is no one who's out to get me. I have nothing to give. I have neither diamonds or golds or a lot of money to give out. So nobody, and I'm out of the way of these people who maybe feared I would tear down their masks and maybe their facades, and they can see, well, he couldn't hit us, and this guy was out of the loop, and so I have no reason to fear. And that's what, if I fear despite that, that means I have some paranoia. But if you have some reason to think that someone has been persecuting you and following you and trying to tear you down and trying to follow every step and sabotage you, and you can feel it when every time you are in touch with people, and then this friend comes and shows the same signs, then you are not paranoid. If you know you're living like when I lived in Greenland, you're living in a small village, and maybe if you go out at night, you could face an ice bear or a fox or maybe a wolf or something, and you're aware, and you have your weapon with you, and you're really your antennas are out at night and looking carefully around you, and every noise makes you turn your head. That isn't paranoia. That's because you are walking at night in a place where there could be danger. And so it is in your life. Don't get tricked by people who tell you at the first sign of distrust or reaction from your side that you are paranoid. You are not paranoid if you have reason to believe that there is danger and you're trying to protect yourself and take care not to be tricked again and not to be cheated again. It's like the woman who wants to trust a man, but because of that experience in her youth or young days, she can't do it. She has really to go through a lot of hard measures in herself. It's like a process in the psyche where she has to be brave. And I read once I think it was a story or someone speaking about this. I think it was Gabor Mate, the guy I really love, the Hungarian psychiatrist. I really could recommend to anyone to listen to. Everyone should listen to Gabor Mate at one time or another in their life. They will be enlightened. It needs a lot of bravery to trust again. You really have to be brave to know that life is filled with people who wants to hit you and can be evil, and they have the power to do it. And then despite that, see through the life that it needs bravery to trust some people again out there. And so you because you are in a weak position, it's easy to trust if you are in a strong position and can have eyes and ears on the people you want to trust. You say, I trust you, and then you can like have a camera following them, or some of your agents, or you can have some people of your own protecting you, or maybe getting to them if they want to break the trust. But because you are in a vulnerable situation and you are alone and you don't have that strength to protect yourself, you need to be vigilant. And that's what it's all about. PTSD is about getting out of order because you don't know when to be vigilant and when not. Your body reacts on its own. And some of the processes you can go through is what they call neuro-linguistic programming, or they can call it mental cognitive programming. It's a kind of I found a way called the CAT KAT. It's the cognitive attention trait you need to look into. It's like you must look into, when am I really going wrong in my attention disorder, and try to start regulate your body and mind not to react. Like if you always wake at night and you feel that the day is gonna be terrible because people will be, as soon as they wake up and you go and apply for a job or in contact with them, they will be stabbing you in the back and trying to sabotage your work. You have something to deal with, and that makes you wake up at night because you are exposed and in danger, and you feel it's coming. And so you have to regulate that and say that, first of all, the deep belief that life is more than these evil people or these bad people who are actually mostly stupid and acting out of fear and out of neglect. And so life is filled with angels as well, and good people who can see through that. And you will find the caring path, and you will find your way through, and you will be protected. That was my belief, and that helped me and held me up. And that needs, first and foremost, a deep belief in the God you read. You really need to give yourself up to that idea that you cannot do this on your own. There is a stronger power, and that stronger power has you in his eyes. Isn't that a beautiful phrase? Don't be scared, because that beautiful power, strong, able to say, let things happen, and they will happen. This power has you in his or her or its eyes. It's the God I'm talking about. We say God because we don't know what it is or what its name is. It's just the names we got in the world. But for me, it's a source of infinite and ultimate power who knows everything. Follow your steps and letting things unfold for a reason, and letting these people who are persecuting you and thinking they are winning over you, letting them just do what they do. There is a reason for things, but you are protected and you are in that God's eyes, and you can ask and you will be helped and you will find a way. And as Master Yoda put it, I should have put Master Yoda here as well, because I found just as much inspiration in the Star Wars heroes as my Batman. You have to sometimes just say to yourself, a solution will present itself. A solution will present itself. And that you are protected from evil people. Trust them and let them go by, thinking that trust them wisely. Like if you are in doubt of someone, and that's what happened when you have trauma and PTSD, you can quickly become in doubt even of a friend, thinking that maybe this friend is hiding something or is trying to get to your inner place to hit you harder than you were hit before. Maybe it's a person who hates you or sent as an agent by the government who fought you and secluded you, and then you don't know, is this a friend or a foe? Is this a mask or is this a true person? And that's very difficult, and you lose many people during the way, because when they start feeling that you are distrusting them, and especially women and girls can have this intuitive way of feeling you. And that's why maybe I never got on with any good relationship with a woman, even though I know some had sympathy for me or maybe liked me or started to get in touch. Maybe they could feel that, because I had this very easy way to show without knowing it, but they could just tell that this guy is not trusting. At least he's not good hiding that he's not trusting, and that's the difference. And it's not always the others they meet are more trusting. No one is actually trusting. Basically, we are living in societies where we distrust each other. People who says I'm trusting you is just don't believe it. It's basically no one trusts anyone. I've been in houses of people who were very trusting, as they say, and they liked me very much, but they made sure to lock the doors where they knew they had something valuable, at least something valuable, or they don't want anyone to go into. And so you can see it in the signs that people are trusting you, but to a certain limit. They just know how to deal with it. The problem with PTSD is that you get out of order. and you don't know how to deal with it, and it comes lashing out, maybe to the closest people, or maybe when you are under stress and duration, you just want to fight it out with anyone around you or surrounding you or in contact with you, and that makes people flee or get away of your sight. And so, how do you deal with it if you also have a work? Well, I can tell you how I dealt with work. For me, it was two separate places. To be at work, it was like, well, that's my basis for income. And whatever distrust or troubles I have there, I have to solve um, with a big eye of understanding and professionalism, and swallowing maybe some things you don't want to swallow, and being aware to do your job perfectly and in a good way, so nobody can use it as a way to hit you. And that helps if you're living in societies where there are these unions who are strong and can help the worker if they get any trouble with their workplaces. But if you're living in countries where you can just be thrown out anyway, that means you will take your PTSD with you also at the job. And that's why some people lash out. They want to kill the boss, they want to react, they want to punish these people, because they can see they have power and they can do what they like, and they can actually put you in a very tough position at any time. And so, because I knew I had the unions and I had basic security in the Western societies of they can just persecute me, they need a reason. And if I close all the gaps, I thought, to those reasons, I will be well on my way. Later I found out that was an illusion. Actually, they can find ways to fire you even though they don't have reasons for it, and they will make an understanding with the unions. So to say, listen, we don't want this guy, we will give him some compensation, but this and that. Anyway, that didn't happen to me, because I think I met good people, trusting, and who could relate to the persecution I was going through and the misunderstanding, and they could maybe see behind my face and way of being that I wasn't that cruel and bad man people were associating me with, and they trusted maybe their guts or feelings, and mostly women in those workplaces, but also some of the men. That helped me a lot. So I found some friends along the way, even though we didn't speak about trauma, but they were very helpful, giving me that sense of security and safety. And the same goes for my family. So you need to have some family or very close friends you could anchor with. What do I mean with that? When the PTSD hits you because of the trauma, and you have a very, very complicated trauma, like I went through the years from my childhood, that means that you need to have an anchor. You need a friend or two or maybe 10 to go to. That's why people go to therapists, but friends are more valuable. And that's what Aristotle he wrote, but people has misunderstood it today, because everyone is pursuing egoistic means and thinking that they don't need each other, they only need the money, and they only need to keep up the interest in between them. And when they are gone, you don't need that friendship anymore. That people are so wrong in that, because at one turn or another, the true friend is the one you need. And when you get hit by a friend and you get stabbed by a friend or left and abandoned, like it happened to me, really 99% of those I thought were friends, they abandoned me just because I had new views on things and was critical, and even in a good way, doesn't matter. The ideology they were part of meant more to them than relating to me and my story and my situation. That's not a friend. A friend can relate to you in any situation and any trouble you're in, and can give you that anchor. And I was fortunate by God's angels and help to get into the arms of some of these friends. Sometimes just one can compensate for the whole lot. And that's what makes the trauma starts, in a way, healing. It needs time, as I told you. First of all, you need a friend, and secondly, you need time. Thirdly, you need to look into who you are and what you're doing, and and your perceptions of the world, and start changing them, and start accepting that what people around you are telling you can be true. Like if your friends are reflecting how you are and how they feel you are, take it in. Don't think that's because they're attacking you, or they need something from you, or they want to put you down. Don't let that ego come in the way. Take it in and understand that they are actually just being a mirror for how you are and what your troubles are. And that's what I was fortunate enough with my strong brains to be able to cut through. That I have to accept when my friends tells me these things. And so you have to start looking into how you react in this trauma, and where you lash out, and what makes you react. And many people, they seek like to get out of the work market and do nothing and sit and think that trauma, that means looking out in the blue, or the white wall and doing nothing. But that's not right. The fourth thing is that uh, I'm saying the fourth thing is that you have to like, what can you say, have a place you can escape to whenever you feel things are getting overwhelming, and the world just doesn't make sense, and people are in a kind of a jungle around you, and you just need that protection, you need that escape. And I found it in books, libraries, and movies, and in prayers. And that shifted for me a lot, because I was struggling with my belief at the same time, but and was distrusting even the God I believed in. You can see how the trauma and the PTSD can hit you, even diagonally. That you that I started like also looking into, can I trust this God who abandoned me? Did this God abandon me at any point, and why? And why am I so exposed to all this? Is there a God? And I started having the same doubts as any people who are today atheists, or doesn't believe, or maybe has trouble giving up to their mind to believe, that they feel exposed and they feel hit. And it's like soldiers, who feel, wow, why did this bullet hit me? Didn't God protect me? I had the cross, or I had the Quran, or I had the Jewish star, or something like that. And that's because of our perception. We want God to act in a special way, in a certain time, as we think we want it, and it should be. But we don't understand the deeper ways of things and how they work, and how things just are left to be. Because I think God's concern mostly is that He has given us the trust, and He's given us that freedom of will, and he must let it play out, and He must let people do these things to each other and with each other, because otherwise it will be a kind of violation of our freedoms. But at the same time, we need protection. Can we get it? And why do we not? So I started also distrusting the belief and the idea of my God. So I needed a place to escape to, and that escape must be a kind of a cave where you really feel safe, and you really feel you don't need to look around you, not for a second. And I found it, as I said, in libraries and books. They spoke to me. And the movies, I had some very favorite series, not the least the Batman. I kept watching them, not only the cartoon series, who are my favorite, also those of the Justice League. Batman's role in the Justice League series from 2000 2004 were a God-given area for me. I loved it. But also when the movies came, I cried in the cinema when Batman was persecuted in the second part of it. And Gordon's son tells him, why are they chasing him? And he said, because he can take it. And I cried. I couldn't keep it. I'm lucky I was in the dark, because I had my friend with me, and when the movie finished, I couldn't move, and I waited. And yeah, it was a long thing, but you need to have a place to escape to when things gets overwhelming for you in that situation of the trauma and PTSD. And so with time and a good friendship, love, care, and your own process of healing, read and look into psychology and the traits of PTSD, and how other people dealt with them, and look into the heroes of life and how they did, all these fictional heroes who who find the truth from within, as Poirot says famously to his friend. So one must seek the truth from within. The same goes for Master Yoda and the Jedis, and the same goes for the Batman. He needs to find that strength deep from within him, and at the same time he's very scarred, and he's very close to being a danger to himself and everyone around him. So I'm not saying you are safe, not even from yourself. You can also get there where you become self-destructive, because if you cannot lash out and get to those people who have hit you with that trauma, you hate them and you want to see them punished, and you know that you wanna, if you had the power, to scare them as they scare you. And I meet sometimes very ugly people who say ugly things. Like, sometimes you go to a place, I went to a place lately, and this guy who works there, he just said to a lady that I know, I was saying hi to, "Don't trust this guy." That's, my God, how could he say such thing? I could see it in his eyes. The hatred, the rejection, the everything that shows who he is, not who I am. But it still affects you. And these people, by God, sometimes you feel you would like they're burned in hell, because you know they are unjust. And they know they are unjust, and they know they are doing wrong things, but they don't know where they get the power from to do it. And so they think it's in their right. Right is not necessarily, might is not right, but that's how people go about it. And that's why we get the trauma and we get the PTSD, because we are fighting powers that's just not relating to our way of thinking and how and our security. And so life can be a traumatic experience, but it's mostly when humans do it to you that you feel you wanna get back at them, and you want a Batman to drop down from the sky and scare them to death, or to peeing themselves and all that. And you can't do that. So what do you go and do? You start being self-destructive. You escape, and if you escape too much, you do not interact with your trauma, and you do not seek help from friends, and, as I said before, looking into how this trauma works in you. So that's what I did. I looked into the trauma. I didn't just run away from it, but I had times where I couldn't cope with it. So I ran so much away that I just buried myself in reading some books, forgetting all about who I am, where I was. And I read a lot of books in that manner. And I especially loved the Shakespeare's, and loved the cultural canon books, and some of Alistair MacLean's heroic spy novels, and some of this kind of books that really made me cheerful, and forgetting the time and place I am in, and leaving everything to happen as it wants to happen. And at the same time, the movies did the same effect, and the prayers. And I had times where I left the prayers because I didn't really call out on God. I'm not talking about special ritual prayer here. I'm not saying that you have to do it this or that way. At least not what I did. But I'm saying that the prayers, like just being in touch with that God that you trust infinitely, and say, "You are there, I will never falter, and nothing can hit me, and I feel safe, and a solution will present itself." I left that for some time, and that made things worse. So if you combine walking on the way of having a place to escape to, looking into your trauma, and having the deep faith in the God who never leaves you. He will never leave you when you are in that situation and you are facing your worst nightmares and storms. You will get through later. But and then you need to have a friend, and that must be an angel that comes to you in human form, or angels who send you people with full of sympathy and understanding. Even one can make the great difference. The last thing I must talk about, I hope someone gets the benefit out of this, and I hope someone are led to follow this story, not for my benefit, but for their own, because I know I'm saying valuable things here that psychologists have been studying for decades and centuries and use all the time on studying. That's why I don't get credit, and people like me who lived this never get credit, because they will lose all these 10 years of studying things, and that will go to waste, because they maybe don't see things the same way. But that's exactly Gabor Mate's point, that the way psychology and psychiatry is working today is taking us away from the inner healing. We have the ability for this inner healing, and they don't want to credit this, because that will take away the profit and all that. So the last thing I must talk about is storytelling. You have to keep repeating your story. And I found lately a way some years ago, because I was asked to give a course, 2 weeks course on youth and depression and suicide. And so I digged into some of the material I needed to present for the people who attended. And I found a way that I altered a little bit, that's an old way of telling your story again and again, but on focusing on 4 main lines. So every time you retell the story, you have a new focus. The first time you just have this free association of telling the story as you like. Something happened to you, you just go and say what it is and tell it like you want. The second time you want to tell the story, you have to focus on your what can you say, the opponents, or the people who are responsible, and the people you think are the reason behind this, and the people who have an active role in it. So you have to tell the story focusing on the persons who are active in it. It could be the thief, or it could be the person you quarreled with, or the one who said the harsh words to you, or the boss who wanted to fire you, or whatever it can be, and whoever it is. You have to focus on them. So you retell your story by focusing on these persons in the story. And the third one is by focusing on reasons and consequences. You do not focus on people anymore, but you just keep telling the story, mentioning, well, when I did this, that led that person to do that, and when he did that, that made me react in this and that way, and the consequences became so and so. And by telling with focus on reasons and consequences, you shift your focus once again from the free association and from the people to the act itself. And the last is looking at your story, that the fourth line of retelling your story is the retelling of the story with focus on what you could have done in a different way, and what you wanted others to have done in a different way. So you look at the healing possibilities in this, and in the source of changing it, and that's what brings you finally, after retelling many times, out. So one time I met with a psychiatrist in Greenland, an old guy I wished I had a better relation with, but he wasn't adherent and didn't have time to me. He told me about how he in his youth treated these people from Guatemala, I guess it was, or was it one of these Latin American places that had hard persecution of people, and they left, and some of them ended up in Denmark. And he told me that he was part of that team that treated them and or had to deal with it, and they found that telling the stories, it's like the narrative as they call it, helped these people a lot. So they were asked to systematically sit and talk, or write, or speak, or make notes, whatever, draw and make a storyline, just to tell their story. And they were told to do it again and again, tell and retell your story, because it's a healing process as well. Don't say, oh this guy already knows it, my friend already heard it, they will be bored with me, or how should I say it again? Say it and talk about it. And if that's what you need, that's what your friend will be there for. And that's why you need that friend. That was the first thing I mentioned. So I hope this is valuable. It's valuable to me, and I'm glad I could sum this up in some ways. So trauma is part of life. PTSD is when this trauma becomes too much for our brains and psyche, so it gets out of the normal order of trusting your life and senses and people around you, and you lash out or you run from it, and or you freeze inside it, or you maybe become passive um, in many ways, and you can see you're hurting yourself and others. And so you must deal with your thoughts, you must deal with your feelings, but you need a source of belief, of never distrusting the light of God in life. Because when you do that, you're in a pit and you're lost. I've been there. You can be lost forever, because I tell you need that robe from heavens. You need to believe it. And if you don't believe it, it won't help you. That's where I disagree with existential psychology. It's like they want to use God as a tool, and they want to use the robe of religion as a tool. You can't do that. You have to give yourself up to the belief. Sir Kierkegaard talked about that. You have to take the leap of faith in order to gain the blessings and the change you need. And Indiana Jones, when he stood there, had to take the leap of faith. He couldn't do otherwise. But when he did, he got the insight, and he got the treasure, as they say. He came to the Holy Grail, even though it was lost later in the canyon. But you have to give yourself up to the belief that there is a God who will help you. You have to ask and seek and search, and you will find the angels along the way as well. And tell your story again and again, and try looking into how you act and react, and listen when some people tells you that you are acting strangely, or that you are distrusting, or you are like you can show signs of being paranoid or being stressful, or all that. Especially people who like you and are surrounding you with their care. They don't want anything bad for you. They want to help you, but they need to reflect this to you so you can be aware, not just to go on and think everything is normal. And so I've been through this process, and I could upheld my job, but I had also difficulties with that, because I must be clear about it. It wasn't easy. You could also feel persecuted, and you can maybe react to situations where you cannot contain your stress or distrust and the disorder you're in. You want to either lash out or you want to run away. And I've been through that also several times, and that has also given me some challenges, especially because I have a family. So it's not easy, and I'm not saying you're healing, and I don't know why all this happens and what kind of compensation we must be looking forward to, because God in heavens, if there wasn't a kind of compensation and help, we are truly in a hell already, because who will help you if you're powerless? And that's where God comes in, because he tells you, I've left you to be powerless, and I've left you to the trauma, but the compensation will make you forget everything. And these people who made it happen, their punishment will make the change that they will never forget, and they will know that they are not going to run away. And that's why they also become self-destructive in alcohol, drugs, or otherwise killing their conscience, because they know they've been doing wrong, and they don't want to seek the forgiveness of the person they've done wrong to. They want to keep on going as if they're right, and as if what they did was out of righteousness, out of their right to do so, because they have the might, and people have given them God has given them the power, life has given them the ability to do so. And these people, they are doing this too. It's okay. They are useless, they are evil, they are no good. That's the excuses they use to themselves. And some of them wake up and comes and apologize deeply and want the forgiveness of the victims. But many doesn't. They are the psychopaths, as they say. and the psychologically disturbed. I'm not talking about people in jail. There are many of these people running around, running newspapers, and are politicians and have power to to interfere. They can work any place. They can be your boss at work, and they can have these psychopathic traits, and they believe what they are doing is out of the good, and they don't care about the human life and what it happens to it, and they don't show that compassion. And so only thing you can do is have that belief that one day you will be compensated deeply and truly for this trauma, both in this life and later, or maybe only later. There is no answer for that, but it will help. It will help deal with your trauma in ways that that's deeper than you think.